Live. We going live, talking about the perfect throws season, developing those 4 keys to become an elite thrower. And I think that there is going to be the most important thing for you to take away, is that there's truly going to be 4 key factors that you've got to focus on as a thrower. Okay. And so when we work through the entire webinar, my sole goal is that you know the 4 keys. Okay, exactly what you need to focus on with those 4 aspects. You're going to have direct takeaways for those 4 factors. And then you're going to have some aspects around planning and then how you can implement it. Because I think at the end of the day, the most important factor around throwing ends up being how can we get those 4 different factors to sort of jive together in this fluid system so that you end up peaking at the right time. Oftentimes, a lot of throwers, especially at high school, we might be dialed in with technique, but then we have something like mobility fall off. We might be dialed in with explosiveness, but we might have something like strength fall off. And I think the best thing that we need to focus on is being able to plan and coordinate everything to achieve all of these things at the right moment so that we can get big throws, especially if we're talking about being a high school thrower, being a high school throws coach. That's where we've got to be as focused on those things as possible. And really what it comes down to when we're building out a system, okay, I want to get into some slideshows that we put together here. I'm going to share this with you guys. All right, so you should be able to see me in the one corner. And now we got these sweet slideshows going. This is like the first time we've ever done this. So hopefully you guys can see that as well. Yo, did this just end? Is this going? Oh, no. Is it out?
I have no. Andrew, do you have any diagnosis for this?
Is it me or is it something else? I don't know. They're saying it's good. It's weird. It's like it's not on my camera. Whatever. I'm going to roll with this. So, Jason, see if you can see me. Am I still up in the corner? Yeah. Okay, we're good. Yeah, but tell me if you guys can see the slides. I'm going to switch it. I actually cannot. The slides aren't moving. That's the problem here, actually. If I get out of it and then I get back on. Tell me if you can see any of these slides. All right, so when we're looking at this is so fun. It's crazy because our video guy, Jason, who was a shot putter. Oh, so some of you guys are saying it is stopped. Stop for some of you. It's not stopped. You're still audible, and we can see the slides. All good. It's going. It's all good. Okay, just a little bit of a lag. No slide rolling. Okay, let's go. Some of the big factors here is that Jason was an All-American, a D3 All-American through 17-plus meters. He's our video guy, and he's freaking out right now. So when we're looking at this, okay, I think the easiest thing that I like to start with is what's the science behind throwing? Okay, if you look at throwing in the shot or the discus, the shot you're throwing in a 2.135 meters circle. Okay, discus 2.5 meters. The throw is going to last between 1 and 2 seconds, right? The delivery phase 250 milliseconds, and then we're throwing a 4K, a 12-pounder, a 6K, a 16-pounder, a 1K, a 1.6, a 2K. Those are the implements that we're throwing. So we're looking at what's the angle of release, what's the speed of release, the height of the release. That's everything that we're trying to factor in here. And then we've got motor unit function, rate coding, and generating high ground reaction forces. And that's what matters to throw far. But at the end of the day, as a coach or as an athlete, does that mean anything for training? And really, it doesn't, because it's not going to actually help you throw farther if you're constantly thinking through like, what's my rate coding? What's my perfect angle of release? Yes, there's factors that we have to bring up to dial into those things. But if we're going to be thinking through such nitty gritty in the weeds aspects, we're going to be paralyzed. We're going to have paralysis by analysis. And so the big factor that I want to share now is that when we're looking at the 4 keys to throwing, okay, the 4 keys come down to first, okay, it's an acronym STEM, okay, and none of these are ranked in a specific order, but it's 4 keys. The first aspect is going to be strength. Okay. The second aspect is going to be technique. The third aspect is explosiveness. The fourth aspect is mobility. So if we're dialed in and we're focusing on strength, technique, explosiveness, and mobility, now we can build throughout that season. Okay. And those are going to be the qualities that we can really focus on to lead into PRing at the right time. A lot of times high school kids might come out and they're really, really excited to throw, and it might be early April and you hit a big bomb. And what ends up happening is, it's the end of May, early June, and you're not throwing any further than you did in the beginning of April because you weren't as focused and you weren't as dialed in. And so when we have to look at this aspect, we want to think through what's an example of strength, right? So if we're looking at strength, minimum, we've got to be lifting 3 days a week. If we're lifting 3 days a week, we want to focus on lower body strength training, okay, upper body day, and then plyometric day. We refer to it as athlete day. That's the minimum, okay? In season especially, that's what we should be doing. Okay, leg day, upper body day, plyometric / athlete day. Okay, now that's some of the key simple components around the strength work. When we're doing that, we could be doing cleans, squats, lunges, RDLs, heavy pulls. Okay, when we're doing our upper body work, we're doing benches, pull-ups, military press, rows, all of those aspects. And then when we're doing things like plyometric based training, now we're going to be focusing on doing things like hurdle hops, stair jumps, jump lunges, jump step up, single leg bounds, anything like that's going to help with that rate coding aspect. And so as much as I joke about rate coding, high threshold motor unit recruitment, and ground reaction forces, we've got to set up the system to help enable that to operate at a high degree so our nervous system is firing as well as possible. So that's going to take us into technique. And when we're looking at technique, shot, we're going to have gliders and spinners, discus, spinners, right? So we have to think through some simple aspects of technique to really dial in and improve how our pattern is rolling. So if we're looking at this, one thing that we like to do in our shot put progression is we will say, literally, it comes down to going around the left. If we're a right-handed thrower, go around the left. Then when the right ground's in the middle, the left goes around the right. And then when we ground with the left leg at the front, we go around the left. So it's around, around, around. It's 540 degrees of rotation. Okay. When we're looking at a glider, have the simple riddle of drop, drive, finish forward. Keep it as simple as possible when we're thinking about the technique aspect. Okay. Then when we're looking at this, we can say, well, what's a progression? If we have somebody come to Garage Strength and they're starting to learn, let's say we have 7th graders, they come in for the first time to learn how to throw. The first thing that we do is we'll say, okay, let's take banded standing throws. This is the finish. This is the tension that we want you to have from a banded stand. So you just rotate and you feel where you have to be, where you have that ignition through your entire nervous system. Okay. You rotate and you hold, you rotate and you hold. And now you're feeling the ground. You have those ground reaction forces, but you're also feeling tension through the trunk and into the hand if we're talking about shot put. The next thing that we might do, okay, after you do that banded stand is now we're going to do an actual standing throw. Okay. And we might just do, let's say banded stands, we're doing like 2 sets of 10. And then we go, okay, this is a standing throw. Let's say it's the first week. We might take 4 to 10 standing throws. After they do 4 to 10 standing throws, we'll do some half turns. Okay. And we try to cut off that left arm so they're not using that left arm. And then after that, the progression might be big step to a power position and pause. Okay. So that's that progression. Then they learn how to do the non-reverses. Then they do fulls. And the best part here is that we will take kids through this progression, okay, where you're literally going through a banded stand, then a standing throw, then a half turn, then a big step, then a non, then a full. And there might be some athletes that want to go through every single chunk of that. And there's other athletes that might say, I'm going to take stands and can I just go right to nons? And they want to feel out the nons because there's less of hiccups then. They're going right to a movement that is more similar to the full. And the best aspect here is that one thing I think that we sort of discount with our high school athletes and even collegiate athletes is we want to break everything up into chunks so much, which is fine, especially on specific days of training. But in reality, the sooner we can get someone to do their full movement, the sooner they get reps in the full movement, the sooner their brain can develop and they can have, I think it's the vestibular part of their brain can then develop and their wherewithal starts to improve. And then when that happens, now we can go back and start to chunk things a little bit more. And that's where it comes down to, if we're looking at, just like we did with our strength, right? We're looking at strength is broken down into a leg day, an upper body day, and then a plyometric day. When we're looking at technique, we're trying to break it down into days that we're going to slam throws, okay? Days we're going to do drills. Days that we might do batting practice, or as we call it, range throwing, okay? Range throws are literally just like batting practice. Okay, so now we have these specific splits with these specific lifting days. And that's going to take us, I'm going to share the glide progression here where we do a stand, a banded stand, an A drill, a Leif drill, stop glides where you pause in the power position, non-reverse glides, and fulls. Okay, so a little off track here, but what we try to do is we try to lay out the technical aspect so that there's a split laid out. There's a split laid out specific for technique relative to the lift. Okay, so if we go through what the technical goals are, and then we go through what our actual strength goals are, then we can start to factor in, okay, now let's look at where does explosiveness come into play? Okay, and where does mobility come into play? Explosiveness is going to come into play as that athlete day, as that plyometric day. That's going to be the third day of the resistance-based training. So in explosiveness, we should be doing this at least once a week in season. Okay, out of season, you might do it twice a week. In season, this might include, like I have right here, box jumps, jump lunges, side medicine ball throws, dumbbell throws, hurdle hops, and skips. Okay, so if we're doing those explosive-based movements, then we got Lucas Warning doing some jumps. Looks like it was still snowing out here. This must have been recent. If you're hitting these movements regularly and you're looking at the split and you're going, okay, day one is a leg day. Let's say before we throw or before we lift, we actually throw and we go have that slam session. So day one, we have a slam session and then we have a lift with a leg day. Day two, let's say that we do a drill throw because we're going to be a little sore from that leg day. And then after we do drill throw, we go and lift. Okay, then day three, let's say that we want a day off from the gym. All right, we're going to do day three, nice, easy range throws, and then we're going to do mobility work. Okay, day four, we might look at it in a different light. So we're starting to set up where the training is in relation to the splits in the gym, and then that's how that starts to roll. Okay, so here we even have for mobility, every single day should be a general mobility-based warm-up that is focusing on the problem areas of the throws. Okay, and we're going to go into what those problem areas are. And every single day, there should be a cool down where we hold positions and we discuss takeaways from that training session. And so if you're looking at a simple way to think through mobility, I like to lump it into three areas. You're going to have long duration hold. Okay, so that could be like long flows in yoga where you're holding for 60 to 90 seconds. Okay, you're going to have dynamic positional work. Okay, so that would be more like traditional hip 90-90. Okay, something like this right here that I just put up on the screen. So that's going to be more dynamic movement. Okay, and then finally, we're going to do resistance-based training. Typically, most of the time, sometimes we will do partials. Most of the time, we will do full range of motion resistance-based training, and that can improve your mobility. Okay, so we're looking at mobility, one as a warm-up, two as a cool down, and three inside of our training. Okay, now we're sort of hitting it consistently. It's systematic. Okay, and the systematic aspect of mobility is also linked in with our explosiveness. Okay, the strength aspect is linked in, and everything comes back to how can explosiveness and strength and mobility provide this crucial foundation to technique. And the technique needs to be as simple as possible. And so if we're looking at mobility, we can understand that the problem areas for a thrower are typically going to be that thoracic extension, that thoracic rotation. You know, a lot of throwers might struggle with rotating the upper back as they put the shot into their neck. And then you see them as they come out of the back of the circle, they might lose that tension. Same thing with the discus. Okay, so we need to focus on good overhead positions. We need to see if somebody has poor posture, how can we alleviate that posture so that as they get out to the circle, they look a little bit better. They might, if somebody has poor thoracic rotation or extension, they might struggle in various lifting positions. They might struggle with a snatch or a clean or even sometimes a bench press. And this can lead to shoulder issues. So we need to make sure that we're targeting those areas based off the problems. And same thing if we're looking at the hips, the lower back, right? If we're doing long duration and we're doing dynamic positional work and we're doing resistance-based training, okay, we might use things like pause front squats, single leg squats, walking lunges, overhead walking lunges. We might do reverse hypers, glute hams, these are all resistance-based work. And then we also might do Cossack squats, something like that. But then at the same time, hip 90-90, okay? Baby pose, a cat-cow, cat-camel. Now we're doing movements that will target the low back and the hips. And if the reason being is that we don't want someone to have poor movement through their trunk. If they have poor movement through their trunk and their hips aren't working really well, they might collapse in the middle. They might lose that tension as well. They might go flat-footed or extend the knee. And then when you extend the knee with your movement pattern in the circle, you tend to transfer forward a little bit early. So we need to alleviate that stiff hip movement, and then that's going to help increase the acceleration of the implement as we're working through the circle. And then finally, even when we're thinking about that poor hip movement, we need to make sure that we optimize the hips and we optimize the ankle mobility, because a lot of times poor ankle mobility will actually lead to shoulder problems. If you have somebody who has really poor ankle mobility, their knees won't track forward as well, and they'll tend to dump their chest forward, and then they get stress on their shoulders if let's say they're catching a snatch. Okay, so those are some examples where we want to dial in that ankle movement, the ankle mobility, and pair that with good hip work and good thoracic work. Okay, if we're looking at knee movement and how the knees are tracking forward, if we have an athlete who's able to hold plantar flexion and knee flexion when they ground in the middle, they're going to be able to rotate really, really well. If their ankle isn't super mobile, okay, they'll typically go flat-footed and extend the knee, as I stated earlier. So a lot of these things need to be factored in. And then on top of that, if their ankles are immobile, oftentimes we'll see that ankles can be immobile and they're not jumping as well. Now, where am I going with this? Okay, the overarching theme here is that we've got the 4 key areas, okay? We want to focus on at least 3 days of lifting a week. Oftentimes, we'll get into 4, okay? Leg day, upper body day, and athlete day. We want to know what movements we should use on those days, okay? Let's say clean, squats, lunges. Let's say benches, pulls, rows, upper body day. Let's say hurdle hops, box jumps, jump lunges. Okay, those are the lifting splits. We're looking at, okay, now we're going to the mobility stuff. Okay, every single day we can focus on a thoracic aspect, a hip aspect, and an ankle aspect. Okay, we can do that early in the session and we can do it at the end of the session. And then along those lines, okay, after we get through that aspect, the next thing that we want to focus on is technical development. Okay, we want to think about what days do we slam throws, what days do we try to throw and drill, what days should we be doing range throws. Okay, now the big thing here is that we put together a course. It's called the Perfect Throw Season. It's a 12-week coaches course, and even high school athletes, college athletes, you got 12 weeks. It lays out the exact throws, the exact split for the week and for the month, so that you have this laid out and you can see this in this entire course, like what you need to do every single day, so that when you get to practice, you actually know what to do with your athletes. I'm going to put this back up on the screen, but then I want to get more into how to plan out that whole season. So you can scan this QR code. You can head over to throwsuniversity.com. You can pick up the Perfect Throws Season right now. There's also a link down below in the description. The big factor here that I want to really, really harp on is that when we're able to plan effectively and implement things effectively, we can break it down so that we can peak athletes at the right time, so that they can go and break the state title or break the state record. They can go and win the state title, okay? We don't want people leaving PRs back in April, middle of April. We want them hitting PRs in May and June, and so that they bring home all the hardware, so that they bring home those fantastic memories. One of the coolest memories of my life was winning a state title in Pennsylvania. It's a huge, huge accomplishment. And that's our whole goal here, is that we want to create great memories for our athletes. We want to create great memories for coaches, so that you have a very dialed in approach day by day. And then the big thing here is that when we get into planning the perfect season, we've got to think through what's the priority for the main competitions, okay? So I think oftentimes we get lost in the sauce if we're in college even looking at these invitationals. We're like, oh, we got to throw well at, let's say, Penn Relays. Okay, oh, we got to throw well at Drake. And those meets are great. They're absolutely fantastic. But the more frequently that we pull away from training earlier in the year, the more frequently that we do that, the more likely our PR or our peak will start to dwindle later in the season. Okay, so if we can understand that, now we need to look at, okay, what are the priorities throughout the season? When's states, when's nationals, when's regions, when's counties? And then the next thing that we like to do is we can look at different groups of our athletes. You know, this athlete throws 30 feet, so we just need them to be at dual meets. We need them to try and be as good as they can to throw well at dual meets. Well, this athlete here could go to states. They're right on the brink of qualifying for states. So we need to make sure that they're dialed in for states. And then this athlete's a 60-footer or a 45-foot shot putter for a female. They're the ones that are going to go to states and going to fight for that top 2 to 3 spots. So we need to make sure they're peaking really, really well at states. And that's how the plan should be laid out. It shouldn't just be this once and done plan, rinse, wash, you're done. It should be like, this is one group, this is a second group. Okay, and that's a big factor that we do inside the perfect throw season is we try to break down 2 different groups, even the implements. Now, if we're looking at this and we say the entire season, we have to plan backwards. Then the second big factor is that we've got to look at those big meets, okay? And we got to say, okay, these are the big meets for the month. And then we have to look at when are the holidays. Easter falls into spring track. I'm trying to think of other holidays that pop up. Easter was always a big one that we've struggled with where it's like, yo, during Easter, we still want you to show up. You can take off Saturday, maybe Sunday. I'd prefer you still train one of those days, but then we can get back into the flow, okay? Because we don't want to pull away from training. We don't want to take away from those dreams. We want to build on those dreams. We want to make those dreams become a reality. That's the entire factor that even as a coach or as an athlete watching this, you've got to remember, what are your goals? Your goals are so that you're standing on top of that podium when it comes to the NMA, so that you're standing on top of those podium. You're one of the top 8 at high school nationals or at the Big Ten or whatever collegiate conference that you're in. Now, if we're looking at that monthly plan and we're saying, okay, these are the bigger meets, then we can look at that monthly plan layout. And then as we work backwards, okay, now we can start to look at, okay, this is May, this is April, this is March. Ideally now, February. And then we're going, here's the daily plan, or here's the weekly plan, here's the daily plan. Okay, so we have a weekly plan laid out based off of dual meets, based off of invitationals and things like that. But then it's also going to show us what days are we lifting, what days are we doing a mock meet and training, what days are we doing range throws, what days are we doing drill throws, what days are we lifting legs, what days are we doing what. And then we can look at it on a day-to-day basis. Okay, this day we're going to do your team warm-up with your coach. Probably some distance coach that's going to keep you too long and you're going to get too fatigued. Then we're going to do our group throwing warm up. Okay. Then we're going to do the throws session. We're going to have 1 to 2 cues that you're going to focus on in the throw session, and throws coaches and athletes focus on 1 to 2 cues for 4 weeks at a time. Don't bounce around. That's another big factor that we're going to go over inside the course. Okay. Then we're looking at the weight room or athlete day, or are we off? Okay, and then we're going to do that daily mobility and breakdown. That daily mobility is when we can do some nice stretches at the end, and then we can talk about what did we do today in training, what did we do in throws, what did we do with our lifts, and then we can progress forward, okay? And then that way everyone is on the same page. The big factor here that I see as huge errors with coaches and with athletes is that they go to practice and they're just pulling stuff off the shelf. They don't even really have a goal or a plan for that day, let alone that week, let alone that month, let alone the year. Okay, you've got to look at what are we doing today? And every athlete that goes to practice should know exactly how the flow is set up. I go to practice here, I start here, I go here after a certain amount of time or reps, I go here next, and then we're done. Okay, in this picture here is Loveland Zudi. She's somebody who trains on site. She's 12 years old. She's thrown 38 feet as a 12-year-old. She's cleaned 187 pounds, but every single day she comes in, she knows she has to snatch first, clean, back squat or front squat, and that's either before or after she goes outside and takes her throws. She knows the flow. Now, some of the other things that we have to have as coaches and as athletes is, what are we going to do in special cases? Okay. What are we going to do when there's a long team meeting? When distance coach, head coach sits for too long, it's 30 minutes in and he's taking away from our training time. What are we going to do? What can we remove? Okay. We might want to cut a little bit of warm-ups. We might want to cut some of the jumps because we need to focus on the throws. But we need to have that plan in case it happens. Another thing, what are bad weather things that might happen? Okay, what if it rains? What if it snows? Okay, what can we do? What's the way that we can adapt? And we have that as a backup plan. If you ever watch the NFL, right, they've got all these different sheets. Those are all trends. It's trends and also plans. Okay. So we know the trends in the spring, rain. In the spring in Pennsylvania, sometimes snow. In the spring, large group settings around the circles. Those are trends. The plans are then over here. What happens if we've got 30 throwers? What happens if it snows? What happens if it rains? What happens if it's muddy? What happens if we stay too long? Now we have those plans laid out so that we know what to do. Hey, these are the drills we're going to focus on. These are the trends that I'm seeing. Now we're going to go, well, this group throws shot and this group throws discus, and you're throwing these specific implements, and these are your 2 cues. This group's going to be over there making sure that they're hitting the drills that are on the paper so that you guys are flowing as well as possible so we can hit those monster PRs when it comes down to state title meet, state championships. Now, another thing, what if you don't have enough implements? What if you're a school and you only have 3 shots and 2 discs? What can we do? Okay. We can go out and we can find rocks. No joke. That's how we do things, right? We go out, we get a concrete block, we get some rocks, we get some bands, and we start throwing them, and we try to get better. We start visualizing, we start watching videos, we start doing video reviews if it's raining too much, right? We go through all this. And then what if there are a lot of kids at the circle? Okay. I recommend you're looking at 8 kids per circle. And then you can say, all right, these 8 are over here, these 8 are over here, and then these 8 are going to be doing some drills off to the side. Now that's 24 kids. So you got no excuse. You got 8 throwing discus, you got 8 throwing shot, you got 8 doing drills. You should be able to manage that group and let the kids play the music. Let them actually choose what music they want to play. Now, when we're going on a daily basis, I wanted to show you just an example here of a takeaway. Okay, you can look at this and you go, okay, team warm-up, let's say the team warm-up is 10 to 15 minutes. Group warm-up's 10 minutes. Okay, this is when we're going to do that nice group setting. We're in this, we're going to focus. And while they're doing their PVC pipe walks, while they're doing their skips and things like that, we're talking to them about the cues and what they're going to get done in the training. Okay, so it's a 10-minute warm-up with the group. Let's say there's 15 throwers. We're doing that group warm-up for 10 minutes. Then we're going to get into the circle. We got 60 minutes. I want everybody to try and get 20 to 25 throws. Okay, Group A, Group B, maybe there's a drill group, okay? You go 1 to 2 cues with each kid, and you just constantly give them feedback. Every single throw, some touch point. Every single throw, a touch point. Hey, you did this on that one, do this. And the big thing here is that the cue has to be related to the movement, and quiz them. Ask them, what was that cue I just gave you? Why am I giving that to you? What does that mean with your movement? What can we work on the next throw? And maybe you wait till they come back to tell them that next cue, so that they're a little bit more present with what you're talking about, okay? So that's 60 minutes. Now we're looking at 70 minutes. Then we can lift for 45 to 60 minutes, ideally 45 minutes minimum. Okay, so they lift for 45 minutes. So now we're looking at 70 minutes. Let's say, so now we're looking at like an hour and 55 minutes. That's when we finish up, and then we get 10 minutes of mobility. We go through recovery, discussion, feedback, learning. We give them some videos that they can watch when they get home so that they can focus on some training. We could even give them some homework. One of the things that we do consistently here is that we'll give everybody some homework, 50 clap push-ups tonight. Okay, I want you to do 50 clap push-ups. I want you to visualize that spin out of the back of the circle. Now, guess what? Now, all of a sudden, the kids are staying a little bit more dialed in at practice. They're focused on their movement. They see that their strength is going up. They see their throws are getting better, and they see that they can become really good throwers. We've got to create that culture so that now they can be better athletes. Now, if we're looking at a weekly basis and we're saying mobility throw, lift legs on Monday, mobility throw upper on Tuesday, mobility throw maybe off on Wednesday, mobility throw athlete day, or maybe some lifting on Thursday. And then we do some mock meet, okay? Mock meet on Friday, right? So those are ways that we can go along processing all this stuff, is we can lay out that week so that even you have less stress as a coach, or if you're an athlete, you can bring this to your coaches and say, look, this is what we should be doing. Now, I wanted to share this with you mainly because what we did inside of Throws University, we had a lot of coaches hit us up and they said, look, we're struggling with our athletes where they PR early in the year. We get a little bit lost in the sauce. We don't know what cues to focus on. We don't know how to structure big group training. And even a lot of the high school kids, college kids, especially D2, D3 kids, were hitting us up and say, how can we structure at least like a 12-week season? Let's say we're going March, April, May. Okay, maybe even a little bit into June. So what we did is we decided we would lay out everything. we have that acronym, the STEM acronym. We're looking at strength improvements, and technical improvements, explosiveness improvements, mobility improvements. And we took those questions and we fielded them. We thought through this for a long period of time. And I said, this is how we're training the multiple Olympians that I've worked with. I've coached the last 2 Olympics. I've been to every single world championships since 2017. And one of the things that I've done is I've pieced all these together. I've put them into an actual resource and tried to figure out, how can I become a better coach? How can I get my athletes to peak at the right time? And so we started to listen to the coaches and listen to the athletes and say, look, clearly this is something everybody's struggling with. So we need to figure out how to make this as easy for you guys to now take this and implement it into everything, so that now you have a more focused practice, and we as a throwing community can build the culture that football has built. You go to a football practice, it's dialed in. You go to a throws practice and everybody's eating Rice Krispie treats. And that's the one thing that, Rice Krispie treats are great, but we want to get rid of that culture in the sense that disorganization shouldn't be happening anymore. So inside of the Perfect Throws season, this is a 12-week course where you have specific, the whole week is laid out. Every single day is dialed in. The month work is dialed in. And so you'll start with the exact mobility warm-up, okay? Then you get into what should you be focusing on with your throws? What weighted implements should you be throwing, okay? How many should you be taking? What groups should be doing what? What's the lift, okay? Should we be focusing on range throwing or not? Should we be focusing on the drill throw day or not? What about leg lifts? Okay, what if we have somebody who can't do a clean? What else can we do? Okay, are there alternatives to those things? And these are all questions that consistently come up that we even troubleshoot on a regular basis here at Garage Strength and Throws University. And this is exactly what we're doing. You guys can scan the QR code for the Perfect Throw season. It's a 12-week course. I'm going to go into the chat now and try to take as many questions as possible. I think I got like 20 minutes left. We're going to take some questions and hopefully we can help you guys out. And this is stuff that we've done here at Garage Strength. I think we've had probably close to 30 state champions here in Pennsylvania. And I would say all together, like across all states, I would venture to bet this is closer to 100. But I wanted to go in now and share this with you guys, and then come in, take some questions, see what you guys are thinking. Again, I'm going to keep this up on the screen so you can scan this. You can also click the link down in the description, head over to throwsuniversity.com. And this is really, it comes back to what are those 4 key aspects to becoming an elite thrower. You're going to walk away with that minimum. You know that you have to get stronger. You know you got to focus on technique. You know you got to be explosive. You know you got to be mobile. Okay? Those are 4 keys. On top of that, you just learned the lifts. Okay? You just learned a weekly split. Okay? You just learned what technical progressions you can use. You just learned some simple riddles that you can piece together. You just got some different factors in the sense of what's a throwing split, like a range day versus a drill throw day versus a slam day versus a mock meet. So those are very key takeaways that you can now use. Okay. And then piecing that all together is exactly what we do in the Perfect Throw season. Now let's see if I can check out some of these questions. Okay. Thank you. Is there any place we can get a copy of the slideshow, or will this video be available afterwards? The video will be available on YouTube. We're going to keep this on YouTube for everybody. Love the distance team warm-up comment. Yeah, I don't want to trigger any distance runners, but it's the facts. Russell Bowman, 40-pound shot throws for 49 reps daily. No, do not throw a 40-pound shot. I have a question. What if your athlete is in a weight class for school? Would we want them to lift again after practice? I've communicated with the weights teacher before about implementing. So what I would do in that case for Roman, if you have somebody who's in a lifting class, I would really try to get that athlete to do the lift that you want. And I would talk to the strength coach about this. And then on top of that, when you would have the lifting period, they could be doing more drills. They could be doing some ab work, some visual work with some technique. That's what I would look at. How do you prioritize which areas to fix for a cue with an athlete's technique? This is from R. So R, what I would recommend here is that if I'm trying to prioritize, I usually go back, middle, front. Okay. I think the easiest way to think about technique is what do you do in the back? What do you do in the middle? What do you do at the front? And if we're looking at the back of the circle, we want to think about it as almost mimicking what we're doing at the front of the circle. Okay. So we want to be in double support as long as possible out of the back so that we can push wide and have a nice long sweep leg. If we fall into the middle of the circle, typically that creates a lot of other problems and it's a cascade effect. So I'm usually looking at the back of the circle, and then I think there's a cheat code that you can also use, which would be like hold the left arm in the middle, that will help you get to the power position more effectively. The biggest aspect that I think about with technique is that we need to get to the power position. That's it. That's it. Get to the power position, right? And if we can constantly bring that home for the kids to simplify it, prioritize the back of the circle so they can land in the power position. And that's the way we look at the low-hanging fruit there. Question, we will have no access to a weight room during the season. What kind of special strength drills do you suggest? This is, what's up, Mason? This is where I would recommend clap push-ups, dumbbell throws, rock throws, shuffles, half turns, banded stands, banded half turns, box jumps. You're out at a circle. I don't want to hear the excuse like we can't do anything. You're at the circle, and this is one thing that we do is we provide a special case resource. So now you're looking at the special cases resource and you're going, okay, if I can't lift, I want to make every excuse possible to not have my kids lift. Okay. I want to make as many complaints and say that my kids don't want to lift and I don't have access to anything, which is true in a lot of cases. You can do squat and jumps. You can do bounds. You can do skips. You can do jump lunges. You can do clap push-ups, and that's all body weight stuff. So if you're not going to lift, those are some things that you can do right around the circle after they're done throwing. Okay. And then you can do some mobility work. I really, really want to push people to be like, look, we can make all the excuses we want, but the kids will do the work if we're organized. They will do the work if we lay out expectations. And if we look at culture, I look at culture as three things. It's expectations, accountability, and support. The expectations are when you come to practice, I have the program laid out. The expectations are when we throw, we're probably going to lift, and then we're going to do mobility. Those are the expectations. The accountability is, hey, you skipped a couple throws. Hey, you skipped a couple lifts. Hey, you skipped, X, Y, or Z. And then we can help with support, being positive, trying to grow the group, trying to grow the culture, try to be better so that in 2 to 3 years, you've got 15 freaking throwers and half of them are throwing 40 feet and 50 feet. That's the goal, right? That's where we want to be. So that would be, that was a little bit of a rant. Is it beneficial to keep separate sessions for band drills or divide it in and do every day? I think it depends on the flow of the year. I think you could do a separate session for banded drills, especially if you see it's going to rain one day, you could push that off. I think that's one thing I would recommend. Dude, I'm just sweating like crazy right now. I would recommend is that if you wanted to sit down and say like, hey, there's specific banded drills or just drills in general, and you look at it, you go, well, Tuesday, Wednesday, it might rain like crazy. So then on Monday, you want to get extra throws in, and you want to probably, maybe you don't even lift on Monday. But then on Tuesday and Wednesday, you do way more drills because it's raining, and you can get that lift period done. I would break it up like that. Are there any free resources or examples to help with that structure? Well, these slides will be up on YouTube. I don't know if we have any other free resources. I think that if you were at the Colorado Throws coaches or the Colorado track coaches, some of my slides have been available to that, and we're going to put up more videos as well. I think the big factor here was just looking at all these different aspects that impact being a good coach, being a good thrower, recognizing it comes back to those 4 key areas, and we've got to develop all those 4 key areas. Evan just posed a question. I'm a fast, short male thrower, 5'6", throwing 140 for disc. That's great, Evan. Would you recommend throwing heavy implements for form and control or light for speed? So I've never been a light implement equals speed guy. I think some throwers, light implements equals speed. I think some throwers, heavy implements equals speed, because what ends up happening is that some throwers, when they throw heavy implements, their technique gets better. Okay, they feel it better, and thus they can throw faster because their technique's more dialed in. Now, one thing that I've been playing around with, and full disclosure, I stole this directly from Barry Bonds. And no, we're not talking about the cream. what he talks about in his batting style and how he would say he would always win batting practice. Everything was dialed in at batting practice. And he was like, some kids, some other players would go to practice and they'd clown around, they'd hit pop flies, and they weren't focused at batting practice. To answer Evan's questions about heavy implements versus light, they can work for technique, they can work for speed. Both can do either one. The big factor that I'm learning is that range throwing, okay, especially with lighter implements, if it's viewed as batting practice, this is just being dialed in 70 to 80% effort. You don't have to throw big, huge bombs. The range throws with the lighter implements can actually lead to very, very substantial growth in motor control, which means you're going to have better, this goes back to, ironically, the rate coding and the stuff in the beginning where I sort of made a joke, is that now you're going back into greater ground reaction forces at faster periods. You're going to have greater rate coding, which is going to lead to deeper throws. So I really like... I'm very bullish on the concept of range throwing with lighter implements. That's my big take right now. So my group is 16 weeks out from state championship. This is for Alan. Just finished our first exposure and comprehension phase. Would you suggest running another comprehension phase? Yes, I would go another comprehension phase, Alan. And I would even say that's where the perfect throw season piggybacks off a parabolic and sort of says like, okay, this is the throwing specific layout, the mobility work, the explosiveness stuff. It's all pieced together along with the implements and the style of what throw you should be taking, drill throw versus the range or not, or mock meets, things like that. That's another big factor. A lot of us are missing those mock meets. Let me see if I can get. Is it beneficial to keep a separate? Hello, this is from Jared. And DJ, I'll get to you, Space Invader. Hello, I'm curious to see what your opinion is on the general throws culture on social media and what kind of things you don't like about it. Should change. I love it right now. The throws culture on social is growing substantially. When we started Throws University, I think it was 2017, and there was barely anybody on social. We went from at the time, I want to say it was on YouTube. Eric was there, us, and then I think it's John was there, Matt Ellis was there, but I think a lot of people are growing, and I think a lot of the elite guys are starting to get out there more, and they're starting to get on social. So it makes it really powerful when you can see someone, the greatest of all time, Ryan Krauser, one of the greatest ever to do track and field, Joe Kovacs, posting. Val Allman, two-time Olympic champ, she shares her videos sometimes. I think the culture is getting to be fantastic. I think the most important aspect that we've got to remember is that how are we going to apply this to our training and to make ourselves better, right? And I think that that's ultimately the big takeaway, is that everybody's out there, and I personally feel that we should all be trying to make the throws community grow together, because the bigger we can help it grow, the more people we get into the sport, the better the throws become. And it just turns into this awesome developing community. It's a niche sport, right? And if we're looking at powerlifting, we're looking at weightlifting, we're looking at arm wrestling. These are all sports that are niche, that are huge. And we can emulate that and make throws very, very digestible and very fun to be a part of. Dude, we're in a sport where we lift heavy weights in training, which is itself, it's awesome. And then you factor in that we're throwing implements for distances. Like, it's crazy. It's awesome. And I think we could just keep continuing to grow it and think through ways to make it attractive for other kids to come out to join and to be a part of. And a lot of kids, the other thing here, a lot of kids don't want to play football after college, or after high school, but they want to throw. And we can help that. We can help grow those opportunities. How do you recommend coaching coaches as a throws coach? I've been coaching track for 8 years, and the high school I'm at doesn't seem as knowledgeable or want to win as much as me. I think, DJ, I would make the argument. I don't like I used to be like this when I was younger. Okay, when I would be like, man, I wish this, people are posting this and they'll listen to him, but they won't listen to me. And I after a while, I started to realize, like, why does it matter? First of all, but second of all, I have my goals, right? I want to keep coaching elite throwers. I want to keep coaching high school throwers. I want to keep developing, young kids to becoming champions. That's what I want to focus on. And all that matters to me is I coach as well as I possibly can, and I put out as much, as much content and as many ideas and as many concepts as I can. And I will do what I can do to impact my own goals. And I'm not going to worry that there's other people who might not be as motivated as me. I think the biggest factor is like, we've got to set ourselves up, and we can only control ourselves, and we can only impact those that are close to us. And if we do the absolute best job that we possibly can, other people will grow around us, right? You become the mean of everybody, of the 5 people closest to you. And I do believe that that's true as a coach as well. And so if you're constantly trying to get better and you're growing your team, like it takes one kid. And if you go 2 years and you have one kid who wins a state title or one kid that makes it to states, then the next kid comes in and then he goes. And then his 2 friends go, and then you have a girl who makes it. Now you have 3 girls that want to throw and they want to be better, and it just snowballs. It might take time to get there, but that's how it happens. And it's like the only thing that we can do is impact ourselves, and that means taking care of every single aspect around becoming the best coach possible. And one thing with your coaching scenario might be like, hey guys, I've noticed that we're not planned and we're not ready for practice. We get to practice, no one really knows what to do. Well, so what you can do is you can provide the plan for them. And you can say, hey, this is the plan I have for my throwers. We're doing mobility. We're doing throws. These are the implements. These are the amount of reps. Then we're going into lift, and this is what we're doing here. And they might look at it and be like, oh, wow, that's pretty detailed. And the first thing that they can do is just copy your plan. So I think that would be my recommendation there, is that we've got to look at it. What can we control, and how can we make it our expectations as clear as possible? Because that's ultimately how you're going to change and how you're going to impact people. Do I recommend throwing the day before or taking the day off to just chill or just drill? Day before competition, it really comes down to the athlete. If you have an athlete that likes to throw the day before, have them take off 2 days before. I'm trying to think right now off the top, Jaime before a big meet wants to throw hard the day before and even lift pretty heavy the day before. But not everybody's wired like her. So some people, Sam likes to take like 10 to 12 throws and he's done. Some people want to take 4. So it really comes down to trial and error. And that's where having a mock meet on Fridays, and that's what we lay out inside of the Perfect Throw season, is that we set it up so that you start to have mock meets. And then when you have mock meets, you can look at what you did the day before or 2 days prior, and then you can make adjustments, because by the 5th, 6th, 7th week, you're having these mock meets, you're having competitions, and you can see, hey, when we do this, they throw far. When we do this, they don't throw far. So you start to play around with that little experimentation. I think that's a big concept as well that we can sort of pass on. Was going to add heavier implement periodization this year. How do you integrate the lighter implements into the overall scheme? I think try throwing like a lighter implement, and make sure that you recognize it's going to take you 3 to 4 weeks to adapt. I think a lot of kids will put in like a let's say like a 10 or 11 pounder, and they can't feel it at all. And I think that's a key concept, is just recognize it's going to take time to adapt to that. I'm going to take 2 more questions here. Let's say, how do you recommend coaching when the kids throw both shot and discus? Great question. I didn't see this one. So what I recommend is, if you have people that throw two implements, right? Shot and disc, figure out, are they best at shot or are they best at discus? That should be what they throw on Monday. Okay. So then on Tuesday, they have to throw both, and they take like 15 throws in each. Okay. So let's say 15 throws. Let's say they throw discus on Monday, they take 25 throws. Tuesday, they take 15 shot throws, or let's say they take 15 discus throws, 20 shot throws. Okay. Wednesday, they can go back and throw discus. And then Thursday, they've got to throw 2. And if they throw 2 again on Thursday, then on Friday, they get to have a mock meet with just 1. Okay. That would be the way I would lay that out. But then I would still make sure that there's sometimes they do a mock meet with both implements. That's how I would like to do that. How far should I build out my shot sector? 80 feet. 80 feet is how far you should build out that shot sector, Mason. So, guys, a big takeaway here that I wanted for everybody was that recognize those 4 key factors. You've got to be mobile. You got to be dialed in with your technique. You got to be extremely explosive, and you got to have that ability to have a ton of strength. Okay, so we got to factor that back to, what does that mean? Now we got to have a plan for what our technique is and what our throws are going to be. Then we got to figure out when we're going to lift and what we're going to do to focus on being explosive and what we're going to do to improve that mobility. Okay, then you got to have that weekly split that you build out, and then you look at when those big competitions are, you work backwards. Okay, that's how you lay everything out, and we do that exactly for you inside of the Perfect Throws season. It's a 12-week course. You can scan the QR code or head over to throwsuniversity.com. You can click the link down below in the description. Pick that up today. Take it, print it up, take it to practice. You can watch some of the videos where we walk you through everything. I'm even coaching up and reviewing some of the lifting stuff every single day of every week, so we can help impact your athletes. The big goal here is that we want your athletes to peak at the right time so that they can accomplish their dreams. Thanks for tuning in today. Until next time, guys, peace.